Here we are up in the nest, and a couple of things. There's the tree, the stump of the tree that hit this roof and the chimney. This chimney still needs to be tuck pointed and cleaned up. This is the side I couldn't see while I was laying up from the other side. So I just did that by feel, knowing no one has ever been on this roof except another roofer. There's no way for anybody to get up here. So now we're going to tear off, I wish you were here, this small area of shingles. I like these jobs where there's a lot of small things to do and you have to have a varied skill set. So I'm not a shingler that tears off thousands of squares a week and puts on, you know, 3 or 4 squares in an hour. I'm proficient, but this is not what I do all the time, although I have done some bigger jobs. Now, a couple of things is this roof, the joists in this roof are connected to the outside walls. So the joist roof rafters go through here and they connect to that. And I'm sure of that because I saw inside how it was constructed. So it doesn't make sense to put all this weight in the middle. I wasn't thinking. I had these three 5-gallon pails sitting there, and I moved them to the side, and when I get these shingles off, I'll move these to the side. The roof can obviously handle it, but you always want to think where to put the materials so it puts less stress. There might be some roofs that it could be a problem to put all the weight right in the center, and it could be done by somebody who's not paying attention. Now I want to notice that I put this in here temporarily. There's a leak underneath here, and what's happened is this back laminated I put another nail there too, slid down like that. Actually this one slid down as well like that. Now this flat roof comes up to here, so all the rain that hit on this is coming in here and here and here and over there, and there are stains on the ceiling where this leaks inside. Now what happens is, in these architectural shingles, you see there is no nails in here. When this gets nailed, I'll talk about this again later, the nails need to be put in. There's a nailing line right there, and if you put it in that nailing line, it hits the top part of this lamination, but there is no nails in. Looks like maybe there was one there, or maybe that was the one I put in. So anyway, if these aren't nailed, and I find this often where the installer nails high because they think they want to keep it out of the valley or the roof junction, and so they'll nail this row high, or they're just miss. And on very steep roofs you can't do that. You have to go through this line, and then it will get, see, look, it's not getting that lamination, so it needs to be in this line, not just in the space. See, that's a little, you have to really pay attention to the manufacturer specifications. And in this case, I'm sure they said within 1/4 of an inch of this line, and the installer took it to mean somewhere in between these. You might see this is actually kind of like a double line here, so not in between there, in this line. Then see, that's where this shingle, this back part of the laminated shingle comes right to there. And if you don't hit in here, you don't nail it, you don't catch this, and the glue fails and the piece falls down and you get leaks. So that said, we'll begin the tear off, and there are many different kinds of shovels, and I've seen people very successfully use kind of like a pitchfork thing. So in order not to handle these, I could throw this down, but then I have to handle it again. So I'm going to organize it carefully in the basket and get this 30-pound felt. And I'll talk about the felt. I only really need 15-pound, but I have this 30-pound, and I have some ice and water that I might use in the bottom just for insurance and other reasons I'll discuss. So now, and sometimes even using this, one of these, and once you start, you can just pull them off. Put my gloves on. My mother, when she caught me with dirty hands, washed them. So I'm more comfortable with clean hands and gloves. See, look, this is a back lamination. No nail hit that. It was only sticking on by the glue that the manufacturer put on. So a lot of times, once you get this started, you can just use your hands to keep pulling it off. And once you have your hands on it, it's easy just to it's addictive. The sun's been on it, they're soft. They just peel off. They'll behave completely different in the winter. Look at this. I didn't expect this wood to be rotten here. So on an insurance job, this rot has been here for a while. Obviously the tree didn't cause it, and so the insurance company won't pay for this. So it's important to include in a contract that if you find any rotten wood necessary to complete the job, that it'll be done on a time and materials basis, and you outline how much it is. Or a lot of people like to say how much it is that they're gonna charge per square foot. Sometimes if you charge by the square foot and the square feet are very small, like this, say $3 a square foot, so you're charging the customer, I don't know what, $50 to do this, but I have to stop, go get the wood, come back, cut it, put it in, and it's not profitable to do that unless, well, there's certain instances where it is, like there's a lot of it, or you brought the wood and you have a lot of guys, you know, working. But on a situation like this, I'm at $140 an hour in 2020 to deal with this rotten wood. So I'm going to stop and send a picture to my associate so that the homeowner is alerted and they're all set up and they're not caught by a surprise. See, one of the things I like about this is this shovel will pull out nails both back and forward. And I couldn't tell you where I got this thing, and I haven't seen one in a while, but neither have I went looking for it. And man, it's a lot easier than a pry bar or a hammer. I know some guys use a claw hammer and they just go after it, and my wrist these days, it puts extra stress that it doesn't need. So this section here that's rotten, the person who's communicating with the owner said he's going to ask how much it is. I said, well, it's probably not going to be over $500, and that includes a small part in the front, rotten spot in the front. And how I'm coming up with that number, and you can leave your comments below, is the loss opportunity I have and what it's going to take me in time to go to the store, purchase this lumber, and cut it and bring it back up here and put it in, and risk going over a day for this thing, which is going to be $450. And I'm exposed to some locally scattered thunderstorms, so I have that liability exposure. A car mechanic here charges $150 an hour, so it's probably going to be, and of course he's not up here on this roof and not exposed to the liability that I am. So it's probably going to be something like this. And now I'm going to felt it in. I wanted to show you what I learned. I used to have to be up on a roof when you're putting slate in, and you're on a walkboard, and you need some felt. And I know a lot of people, you just put the roll down, but what I do is I spin some of this felt off like this. Right now I'm on, imagine I'm on a 2x10 or 2x12, and I can do this pretty easily. And then so I spool out enough to where I can manage it easily and cut straight down, which is what I did with this piece over here. Now I need to put this up. Well, how do you do that? You nail in the middle at the beginning. Stop my nail. At the the location you want, roughly. I'm using these nails. So you put 1 or 2 nails here. See, I'm gonna have to tear all this stuff out again. And with that in place, I can now pivot this piece up and down to get the position that I want. It's almost easier than having somebody hold it down there. So now I'm in position and I nail the other end. I'm not gonna be too dramatic about this. Now I'm gonna nail this with the next piece. So I'm not gonna nail that down, but I'm gonna put a few pieces here and on the bottom. See, look at that. If any water comes, it's gonna go right down in there. So I now need to strip in some pieces in order to be waterproof. So maybe I can demonstrate this on this piece where you spool off a little bit here and then cut down. Then you should have your pouch on. And now you would start at the end where you don't have to cut over it, right? So we'll put it up against here like this, put it in the position, and it would really be nice if it was long enough to reach this, but it is not. Now I'll be able to use this felt again if I don't get too carried away. Now you can pull it tight, but this is not final. I'm going to have to take this off. That was a dead nail. I need to prevent if some high winds come up, it doesn't yank this thing off. Now I'm going to need to strip this bottom piece in. Otherwise, if it rains, all the water that's on this is funneled right into the roof. I would have been better off doing nothing. Well, I have it felted in, and that should keep most of the water out. I don't expect anything, but in the Midwest, it can show up dramatically and unexpectedly. I cut out the rotten wood, and you can see there's these old cut nails. I may have to actually use a few because I left the nails I wanted. I'm scrounging my pouch for what I can use. And look, for, I just can't believe they did this, is there's no ridge on this. It's just built like a teepee. There's the work that I did earlier to the soffit and some sheathing. But I got this 1x10 at Home Depot, and I can't believe how smooth those edges are. It's just like silk. I've never experienced anything like that. It's number 2. You can see all the knots, and it's also 20 bucks in 2021. COVID-19 people in St. Louis, almost half of them have been vaccinated, and the lumber is going fast in Home Depot. So I wanted to show you how I'm going to mark this. Maybe I can put this on my head and do that. You know, you can measure and then remember the number and put it up there, or you can just hold it up, and in case it's not square, it'll accommodate for that. Now see, I have a nail here that's in the way, and you can see this cut is not square, so we could come, this one I made, so of course it's more square, and we can, come on, hold this up and mark it, and then connect the dots. Even though I have my speed square, this, yeah, stay. Mark that, and see how much easier it is doing it this way? And I do have my speed square, but it's not handy. So any straight edge will work, and you know the rest of the drill. GoPro, turn off. GoPro, stop recording. GoPro, you're not listening. GoPro. Maybe you'll respond to pressing the button. There is on the radar, that would be a storm over there, and one keeps wanting to develop over here, but then it dissipates. But I'm thankful for the cloudiness. Look at that sycamore tree. Maybe some people call it a London plane tree. Pretty impressive. Check this out. I have never nailed anything with a cut nail before in my life, but this, I'm going to be my first try. This is only a 16-ounce hammer, and a 20 or 24-ounce hammer would probably be a good thing to have for these. I don't know if you turn these things with the grain or against the grain or what. It helps to be able to hit the head. I think it'll hold. These held for 100 years. Maybe they have another few hundred in them. Or more. Maybe that's why you don't need a ridge board, because of all these 1-bys. Yeah. So while everybody's watching, miss the damn nail. All right, I'm gonna use a 8-penny, 10-penny for this maneuver here to maybe avoid splitting the wood so bad. Yep, these pulls it up. I'm very partial to this product. I like Carlisle products. They have an awesome reputation. Water and ice protection, high temperature. I don't know what the 300 is. Maybe the thickness. HT, high temperature. Made in the USA. And I have black. And I like this. I used it on the front, and that's it there. But I'm going to, you know me, I like to suffer little and enjoy as much as possible, even though roofing circumstances don't normally dictate that reality. So just like with the felt, spool off some. Don't lay it down and roll it out. That leads to suffering. So you need to be able to do this up on a roof, standing on a 2x10 or a 2x12. So we're gonna unravel a little of this. Not so much that's unmanageable. Now, if this was a Slater tile roof, you would put the whole width in a valley, or the whole width on the eave. But this is so steep, and it's under shingles, and what I'm doing is already over the top. So I'm going to use a half a piece. This roll costs just a little over $100, so it's $50 a square. And I don't know, I want to make sure that there's not a lot of things protruding out, and the boards are nailed in. So my goal is to come down onto this. This, I don't think this is a torch. Yeah, this is a torch down. It's not. That's torch down where you have the flow out like that. It's not a glue down. So it's APP modified. APP is the designation of the kind of plastic, a diptych, poly something something. I will address any funky nailing attachments after a bit, but right now what I'm going to do is slice down the middle of this, thereby getting twice. See, this stuff sometimes, even though I have a really sharp, a brand new blade in it, it doesn't like to cut. Let's see. That's what I get for trying to conserve material, right? So now, well, this stuff, if it sticks it to itself or the back of itself, it's kind of ugly. So maybe what we'll do is grab some of these nails. Since I am retarded about getting on my pouch. So we'll pull this down and position this end so that I get enough adherence to the flat roof. In fact, I'm going to be pulling on this, and sometimes it pulls off a dusty surface, so make sure there's going to be good adherence to that part. Okay, if you're not going to cooperate from that end, we're going to come from this end. So this stuff, if you check out on the literature, on the web, etc., it says it seals around nails, and they don't all do that. They lead you to believe they do, but you want to see that the manufacturer says, yep, it seals around nails. Now, what I'm going to do is coat this roof coating up onto here. So this will be water can't go up underneath this. There will be this bond. When I take the paper off, there will be a bond anyway, and there will be the bond of the 100% silicone Daco roof. When this stuff behaves, it's wonderful. Sort of like a child. They're wonderful when they behave. But then look, when you're not paying attention, that's what they do. And sometimes you gotta recover. And as if I didn't put that nail in, I wouldn't have been able to do that. Okay, now this will seal to this roof, and then I'll come along and put a 22 mil thickness of this Gecko roof up underneath the shingles. And the nails that are in the first row, we won't have to nail them high, which is what the previous people tried to do to keep that from being a problem, is by nailing high. But then they ran into the problem of the shingles delaminating, and it ended up exposing this edge, and water went underneath it. So we'll just continue overlapping this, I don't know, 3 to 6 inches, and then we'll put the felt. Now when we put the felt, I can put it in such a way that it's wrapped over, or I can just kind of put it underneath this. This is going to get a 2x something that I make on top, and it's going to have this water and ice protection over the top of that, so it's going to be covered several times. I am making a mess. Anytime you get roof cement out, it just has a life of its own. I just noticed that, see, this thing operates differently. See, I had really short nails in here. Not gonna be long enough for what I want to use. You might be able to, but I can tack this felt down. Now watch the roof cement get on my hose. So what happens if you use this with the felt? That's not too bad, but you can easily fracture the felt, and if that's going to be important not to do that, you have to come back and spot it. Now, while we're looking at it, the reason this is on here like this is because there was a tear on this side from my contraption to lift the stone off there. So you can put shingles on a plywood decking without any problems. Code doesn't like it most of the time, or maybe all the time, but the reason felt was used is because these knots have sap, and these knots will bleed into the shingles and ruin the shingle. So the way you avoided that is you put some felt on, 15-pound felt, and you have a bit of water, weather protection after you put the felt on. Now 30-pound felt is what you use, or you use 2 layers under tile, or 1 layer under slate. And some people like the extra protection, I suppose, of putting it under shingles, but you don't really need it. You don't need felt except for to protect the shingles from the sap that's in the knots, it's in the wood. So I guess that's all about that. All right, so I wanted to see how this overlaps. That's plenty, and I was able to put it up under here and stick the ice and water from the other side onto it. So wind blowing across this roof can get the water to go up quite high, and now it would have to come up to here to be able to get behind this roof and make it leak. Okay, I put this short piece up here because I wanted to move the shingles and get them out of my way. I had to cut back some of this felt to expose this torch down roof so I can get the water and ice protection stuck to it. I wanted to point out something while we have this opportunity. This is torch down, and it's torch down to a good thing to torch down to is fiberglass felt, and this is 28-pound fiberglass felt. I don't know if you can see, but you can see the glass in there. Some people think that fiberglass felt is waterproof and they'll use it under shingles or other things. It is not waterproof. Water will go through glass felts. It is good to add strength to something like a torch down or glue down roof because it becomes part of it, but it's not part of the waterproof part. It just becomes part of the structure. So this is 28-pound reinforced fiberglass felt. One other thing while we're on the subject, metal cat nails is the right thing to use in this procedure where you're torching down to glass, because plastic tops will obviously melt and you won't want that. So they do rust, but they do really well holding down the glass felt, and this is the waterproof membrane. This is what I like to do when I run the ice and water membrane up against a wall. I turn it up just a little bit, and then I don't like to use any roof cement. This one wouldn't be my first choice, but since it's wet dry, maybe it'll be okay. But I look for one that says SBS modified, and SBS is the kind of single ply roofing that is called a glue down. It has a styrene butadiene, styro something or other plastic in it. That's why they call it modified roofing, because it's modified with a plastic. The SBS plastic is not sun resistant, so you'll always find SBS modified with a granules. Anyway, I like to use an SBS modified with this procedure here, but I'm going to use this in a pinch, and so I just put a bead of this and smash it into it, and it should be okay. My concern is these are not as compatible, because I know that this Carlisle is probably an SBS kind of material. So I'll smash this into here, and that way I'm weather tight for storms that come in. I just prefer the tube that says SBS modified. And to make sure you fill up the mortar joints. Alright, I know that's not, we have to do something around here to help it out. Okay, so to lay this up, this is the steps that I take. If you read the instructions on the package, it's pretty clear that, where is it? Now this says 6 inches. I read 5 5/8 here. Okay, I took 5 5/8. It ends up being 6. That's okay. I just made the math a little harder. And you cut off a 6 11 inch. We'll talk about that in a second. So 5 5/8. 2 5 5/8 is 11 1/4. 3 of them is, that's not right, it's 16 7/8. I had to do the math several times. So 16 7/8 is 3 exposures. That'll bring, so if I start up here at the top and I go down 1 2 3 exposures, that's where the shingles will start. Well, that's not far enough. So here's another 3 exposures. That's still not enough. So another full exposure will bring us down to here, which is very close to 40. So I measured 40 inches down from the ridge, here and here and here, and I'll chalk that, and that's where I'll start the shingles. And you can see that the roof probably slopes to the center just because of the way the joists sag, and this seems to be straight up here across the top, but anyway, that doesn't matter. So now we have where to start up and down wise, and the reason being that we don't want a baby row up here, or it'll look funny. I mean, I don't. That's just the way I do slate. So then the next part is cut, where is it, 6 11 inches. So I came over here and I cut off, that's a 6 inch piece and 11 inch. Now we're doing a bunch. I would save those so I don't have to keep measuring, and I would just lay them on the next shingle and either cut up against it or mark it. And the reason these numbers are so fascinating is when you start laying up, the third course you will use, sorry, third or fourth course, you'll use this 11 one, and then the next one up you use the 6. And so nothing is wasted, and you're doing it according to the manufacturer's specifications, so you get to keep the warranty, which is always a good thing. Now I'm using these Landmarks Certainteed algae resistant, and the color is silver birch, and this color is the only color that is, oh, what do you call it, Energy Star compliant. It's an Energy Star compliant color. It's the only one. Even if you go to a more expensive laminate, you can't get Energy Star. You have to do the entry-level Landmark shingle to get the Energy Star, and it turns out that it's kind of a, well, silver birch. It's got some green in it, and you can see this shingle has the same markings as the ones we tore off, but we're going to be sure that we go in this, between these lines, because that will get us through this back laminated layer. Okay, I've changed my nails to the longer one. I noticed that this is dry in here. I need oil. I don't have any with me up here in the lift, but that's going to be the next thing I do. So then, as similar to how I did on the other side, is I fill this area here that's going to be behind this step flashing, and I bend the step flashing open and put the first one almost to the line, squeeze it into the roof cement and nail it right here. Wow, a nail it once. And that's the only place you ever nail it. You never nail it up here, because if you need to do some work, you would have to take, if this was siding or something is up there, you would have to take that all off, when you should just be able to slip it out after removing that one nail, a fastener. So I put a nail at that crowfoot mark, and I pulled to this one, and with that at the same mark, I pull all the way down to the other one. And now I'm ready to put these shingles. Now, this, normally you need a starter row, but with this ice and water, with the felt, with the roofing coming up as high as it does, I'm going to not put in that. And I'm also, when I put this roof on, coat this roof, I'm going to lift this up and put the silicone underneath. So it's not going to need a traditional starter row. And then you put the nails. So I don't know if you ever noticed how these are constructed. See that? See the wire that goes through there? When that goes in, the wire breaks and it forms a fish hook kind of situation. Yeah, two at once. And that makes it, see, that's a little too high. So there is a specification for putting, what is it, 5 nails for high wind. We'll read up on that, and I'll adjust the nailing pattern to a high wind. But I just wanted to get started. Now we put the next. See, I like to bend it open, because once this is up against there, if it's not pushing, if it's not bent up against there, you can't do anything with it. So we're going to bring it down. This, I set the gauge to 5 5/8. Right here is the shingle gauge. So I can put this up underneath there in the next row. I'll put it at the bottom of the row I'm using, and this shingle will come down and sit on there, and that'll give me the right gauge. So we'll scoop this up. Now sometimes I will put it right on the back of this. So if it rains when we're gone, and then smash it in there and nail this one nail there. Now you use, I believe we use the 11-inch piece. I'm going to check, follow the manufacturer's instructions so you get the warranty. If something happens and they look at it and you didn't follow the warranty, guess what they'll say? Okay, now see, we have a big hole here. We're going to need to deal with that with the we'll discuss how to do that with the coating materials. Okay, this piece is the piece I cut 6 inches. Not very straight either. But you should see the Hispanic people, how they can do that eyeballing. But this is not a practice that I practice every day. So for high wind are very steep. Steep is over 2112. Or if you think there's going to be winds before this adhesive on the back melts and sticks it down, then you use 6 nails and 4 spots for 2112 or greater, are high winds and you don't think the adhesive, like you're shingling in the winter and you don't think the shingling is gonna harden. Now see, when I put this here, this overlaps this piece. Now the 5 5/8 mark is turning out to be this edge here, but I have my gauge set, and so I check on their manufacturing. They don't promise that this is always 5 5/8. So I embedded that in the roof cement. I nailed this a little low, so I spotted it. And here's the piece that I cut 11 inches off of. And I'll put this here. Now I can use the gauge. See, the bottom here, part right here, is on this shingle, and I just slip it down, and that sets the distance. And you know what you can do is you put a nail here and then bring your gauge up to there. Be careful you don't pull the trigger. Now, I'm not the fastest in the world, but the goal is to get the job done for financial purposes and no callbacks. Now the 11 and 6-inch piece that I cut off, they'll go on next. Okay, the roof cement is doing its thing. It's already starting to get everywhere. It's on the head of the hammer, it's on here, it's on here, it's getting on here, and I'm trying to be super careful with this stuff. And it's, see, now that's sticky. I don't know if y'all who do roofing have the same problem. Sorry, so this goes, I've been checking this gauge, and for the most part it's right, but it's not 100%. So if you were doing something that needs to be really accurate, you might not want to go by these, lining everything up with these edges. Now, another thing is, these nails have to be at least 3 inches away from this seam, right? So you can't have a nail close to this seam. Now I followed the instructions. Here's a whole piece. Here's the piece that's 6 inches is cut off. Here's the piece that's 11 inches. Then you use the 11-inch piece and the 6-inch piece. And this way you can now continue. Some shingle manufacturers seem to have this piece come out here and this piece further, but this is the instructions, and I'm going to follow the instructions. See, look at the roof cement starting to have a life of its own. All right, so now we can just run these straight across. All right, in finishing this out, I have to cut off the top of this. I could fold it over and then fold this over, but I have to put a 2x4 on top of this to nail those ridge tile to, or at least to have them set on. So these I'm nailing through the double layer right here, and it's actually making it into the edge of the 1x on the other side. Now I don't want to nail this down. The sun will heat it up and it'll go down, and there's those little adhesive pads on the back. Now, one of the things, so that's the piece that I'm cutting off the top. Now, as I go by, since I'm not used to this pattern, and by the way, I did look it up. It does have this large gap in the pattern. When you see the first course, second course, third, see between the third and the fourth course, the fourth and fifth, there's a large area. Now, to make sure I'm not nailing, I don't have a nail close to the lap part, I put this shingle down. The next one, I'm stacking it up down here, so I know where this end is gonna come. And then when I nail this, see, I can kind of slide this over and see that this piece is gonna come here, and not put a nail within 3 inches of where this is going to come. So I'm going to keep 3 inches away from here. And this should, see this seam, these nails are more than 3 inches away from that seam. Now, I don't know if you caught this, but I ran this shingle up too high and I nailed too low. Now, I could just spot that. Where's my roof cement? Oh yeah. So I could just spot that and throw some white granules on it and call it good. But what I'm going to do, since this is a shake roof, and I've put on lots of shake roofs, well, my fair share, see, this is the little adhesive part on the bottom. I'm going to put the roof cement on the top and the bottom of this little piece, and I'm going to slide it in there and make it look like a real shake roof.